Again, Brigadier Glenn, thank you again for beautiful music at the beginning. Good afternoon, Rotarians and guests. This is the Rotary Club of Toronto. I'm John Fortney, Club President, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the Rotary meeting today. After the invocation and the recognition of the traditional lands, please stay tuned for the playing of the national anthem and for the loyal toast. At this time, I would like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of many Indigenous peoples who have walked and cared for this land for 15,000 years. They include the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, and the Treaty Peoples of the Mississauga of the Credit. Let us take a moment to give thanks for all we have been given and for being a member of this fine Rotary Club with its dedicated and enthusiastic members. We are proud of our club and its achievements, and it is an honor to be a member here. As we share our individual and collective gifts with our communities, let us give ourselves in ways that make give of ourselves in ways that make a difference to our families, to our city, to our country, and indeed the world. Let us not be distracted by political uncertainty, but maintain our focus with strength, determination, and a good sense of humor. Thank you. Now, the national anthem.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Queen. Thank you, Brigadier Glenn, Rotarians and guests. It's now my pleasure to introduce our head table. I am pleased to have the following people with me today. Bill Marari, Rotarian since 1999, classification, club management. He's a general manager and chief operating officer of the National Club, a club past president and incoming chair of our member engagement committee. Co-chair, sorry. Mark McQuitty, Rotarian since 2020, classification, social impact investments. He's CEO of Windsor Park Capital Corporation and is our Let's Be Personal speaker for today. John Andras, a Rotarian since 1988, 33 years, classification, investment dealer. John is the senior vice president and director of Mackey Research Capital Corp and is a sponsor and mentor of our new member, who is Denise Inglis. You'll hear more about Denise shortly. Robert O'Brien, Rotarian since 1985, classification, law practice general. He's a partner and lawyer with Coutts Crane, a past club president, and is host to our guest speaker, who is Mark Garner. Mark will be more formally introduced shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, our head table. For our virtual meetings, we do not have an official monitor to introduce visiting Rotarians and guests, so I will do it today. To our visiting Rotarians, I want to thank you for choosing our club for your makeup, and we hope that you enjoy the meeting. To all of our guests, welcome to the virtual meeting today, and please feel free to contact the office and find out how you may be able to make a difference by joining us. Rotarians, please welcome our guests in the tradition of our great club. Announcements. I know you hear this every week, but we have to do it. You may already know this, but in case you do not, you should be aware that these are virtual Rotary meetings, and if you have your video camera on, that you may show up on the YouTube or Google Meet recordings or live streaming. If you do not want to appear, please turn off your video. We will not be able to edit you out afterwards. Thank you. Before we move along too far on our agenda, I always like to extend a happy Pesach or happy Passover to our members and guests. For those who may not know, Passover 2021 begins at sundown tomorrow on March 27th and ends after sundown on Saturday, April the 3rd. What is Passover? Passover is the holiday of Pesach, which is an 8-day celebration commemorating the emancipation of Jewish peoples from slavery in ancient Egypt. Happy Passover to all who celebrate. Next week, we have past President Bill Murari with a district announcement for you. Bill?
Thank you, President John. I have a quick message for you from the district. As everyone knows, despite the pandemic and the lockdowns we've been experiencing this past year, Rotary and the amazing work we do is continuing on. The Rotary Club of Toronto has also been on a great roll lately, attracting lots of new members. Without our face-to-face regular luncheons, it is really difficult to understand the full scope of all we do and what 1.2 million Rotarians are doing around the world. Our district, 7070, which includes over 50 clubs, has been extremely busy carrying on great work locally and internationally. And they would like to share all that they've been doing and what's happening, so you have a better understanding of the impact of Rotary and all the lives that we assist on a regular basis. So mark your calendars. On Thursday, April the 8th, from 7 p.m. until 8 p.m., the District Membership Committee is hosting a 4th new member Zoom get-together. You can register online on the district's website. Now, there will be lots of interesting information that they'll share about our Rotary organization. And as I said earlier, there's never enough time at our regular luncheon meetings to ensure that our newest members have an opportunity to hear all about it. So please join us April the 8th to meet with our Rotary district as they share more about the Rotary basics and some not so basic information of what Rotary does. Feel free to bring any questions you might have or send them ahead of time to our district contact, Virginia O'Reilly. The session will be of great interest to everyone, particularly anyone who's joined our great club in the past 2 years. Look forward to seeing you there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate that. And I know Natalie went, and for any newer members, it's a great way, as Bill says, to get to know what you've joined and get to a bit of your cohort of other new members around the district. Now it's time for our Let's Be Personal speaker. Mark McQuitty, over to you.
Thank you, John. Well, I've been a Rotarian now for not quite a year. I joined last May, and it was probably the only historic first in my life. I was the first new member to be introduced virtually in the Rotary Club of Toronto's history. Now, I think what I'm here to do today is to share with you a little bit about how I got here. And really a lot of what I've done both professionally and personally probably should have brought me here sooner. Now, not everybody might think of it as service, but my first job out of university was working for a federal cabinet minister. That was in 1983, and in 1984, there was a leadership race to replace the current prime minister's father, and I was lucky enough at a pretty young age to land a job as part of the leadership campaign's 4-person policy team. We didn't win, but after the 84 election, I landed up in the opposition leader's office. And when I was thinking about a change in career, one of my mentors on Parliament Hill gave me what proved to be some very useful advice. He said, at your age, don't make politics a career. Go out, get some real world experience. If you ever decide to get back into the political world, you'll bring real value to the table. If you're doing something else, everything you learned here will serve you and others extremely well. And he was right. So I started looking for a private sector job. Came to Toronto, was introduced to the head of a fundraising firm. They hired me, sent me back to Ottawa, where I got my start in fundraising as Associate Director of Carleton University's Challenge Fund campaign. At that time, the most ambitious fundraising initiative the university had ever undertaken, with what seemed at the time an impossibly large campaign goal of $15 million. Today, donations of that size aren't uncommon. Now, the firm I joined was Community Counseling Service, or CCS, which at the time was the largest fundraising consultancy in the world. And to make a Rotary connection, in 86, 87, it was CCS that designed and managed Rotary's Polio Plus campaign that at that time had a goal of over $100 million, which back then was enormous. In the years that followed, both with major firms and for over a decade as head of a boutique consulting firm, I designed, directed, supervised, or consulted on campaigns with goals ranging from $500,000 to $50 million. And you can't do that kind of work in any community without speaking to Rotary clubs or working alongside Rotarians. They're in leadership roles everywhere you go. A little over a decade ago, and with help from some great people I'd gotten to know through their philanthropic work, I set up Windsor Park Capital Corporation as a firm designed to seek out investment opportunities in businesses that have a positive social impact in their communities. And over the years, I continued volunteering. I was a founding member of the National Capital Junior Board of Trade. I was on the board of Ottawa Ballet and the Ottawa Carleton Board of Trade. And in Toronto, I was for many years on the board of the Bob Rumble Center for the Deaf, and I still volunteer with the Enoch Turner Schoolhouse Foundation. In fact, it was around the time that Easter Seals closed its camp in Muskoka, and the Bob Rumble Camp for the Deaf took a lot of the Easter Seals kids into its camp programs that through John Andrus, who introduced me to the club, he also introduced the Bob Rumble Center and its kids to the Rotary Annual Children's Christmas Party. So I guess I kind of like to think that through my life and career, in some way, shape, or form, it's been about trying to do some good and in getting to know and work with like-minded people. Sounds like Rotary to me. I'm glad I joined. Back to you, President John.
Mark, wonderful. Thank you. We're glad to have you, and we're glad that you had the faith to take the leap during COVID. And with all your cohorts who joined just before or during COVID, I cannot express enough how amazing it is that you went ahead and joined us, and we have guaranteed that you will enjoy, and everything that you expect and more will come from it. And thank you. Anyone else who wants to be on the Let's Be Personal speaker, please contact Don Bell. I think it's just fantastic to hear about each other and get to know each other better. It's now time for my most favorite presidential roles. I would like to ask our past president to introduce our latest new member. John, over to you.
Thank you, John. Denise Inglis was born in Kingston, Jamaica. She came to Toronto in the 1970s with her then young husband, who was completing his postgraduate studies in medicine. It was in Toronto, while raising 3 children, that she pursued her love of art studying at the Ontario College of Art. Now, 30 years later, Denise is an award-winning artist, art teacher, and entrepreneur, who has the honor of having one of her pieces hanging in the National Gallery of Jamaica. For Denise, art and the mind-body connection are inextricably linked. So in addition to her love of art, her second passion is studying the body-mind relationship and how it affects healing. This interest led her to become a certified yoga teacher and yoga therapist, teaching for many years at the Kripalu Yoga Center, one of the first yoga centers opened in Toronto. Over the years, in her pursuit to learn more about mind-body healing, she came to meet and personally study with outstanding teachers like Deepak Chopra, Louise Hay, and Marion Woodman. Denise has dedicated many years of her life to volunteering for a wide range of charities. For example, she taught yoga for many years at the Wellspring Cancer Foundation in Toronto, which had just opened its doors. Many remember her welcoming classes, her open-heartedness, and her laughter. Most recently, after retiring to spend winters in Jamaica, she was asked to help with the National Youth Orchestra, a charity that aids underprivileged children to build self-esteem and career opportunities through music. It was there, with the recommendation of District 7040 Governor Fay Campbell, that Denise met and helped the Ottawa area Rotarians with their annual art auction. To support their charity drive, Denise donated pieces from her Violins Restored series. These pieces received the highest bids at the Rotary auction that year. We are honored to have Fay with us today to welcome her friend into Rotary. And I look forward to the day, hopefully soon, when I can physically have lunch with my friend and our newest Rotarian. Denise, would you like to say a few words to introduce yourself to our club and to the community of our club? Denise.
Thanks for your kind words, John. And thank you, Rotarians, for your warm welcome. Now over to you, President John.
Welcome, Denise. We look forward to working with you in the future and getting to know you a lot better. Welcome, welcome. It's now time for our guest speaker introduction. I'd like to pass things over to Robert O'Brien. Robert, over to you.
Thank you, President John. Many of you will recall the iconic song from the 1960s that went something like, "When you're alone and life is making you lonely, you can always go downtown. When you've got worries, all the noise and the hurry seems to help, I know, downtown." Well, in the past year, with all the social isolation of COVID, people have been feeling alone, have been feeling lonely, and have had lots of worries. And there hasn't been a lot of noise and hurry in the downtown. But Yonge Street still stands and is alive. Through it all, our speaker, Mark Garner, has been Chief Operating Officer and Executive Director for the Downtown Business Improvement Area since 2013. He's been an active champion for building and building back the thriving, vibrant city center, getting through COVID and planning great things for the future. He has been a successful business and community leader for more than 30 years. And his business experience and social conscience were originally forged as a senior executive at the Bank of Montreal, ATT, and NCR Canada. Before joining Downtown Yonge, Mark spearheaded economic development in the Kitchener-Waterloo area for 5 years as executive director of Downtown Kitchener during a period of tremendous growth and revitalization. Mark is action-oriented. He is an advocate for change, and he has spearheaded numerous campaigns and projects for revitalizing our cities, and he works presently directly with municipal leaders and the mayor on urban planning and revitalization. So we are very pleased to have with us today someone in the know of what is really going on downtown and the plans for the future to keep Yonge Street forever young. Over to you, Mark Garner.
Thanks, Robert. Thanks for that introduction. And it's great to be here and participate in the Rotary meeting today. I always love those introductions, but I would say to everybody, I'm still the guy, even though with all that experience, I'm still the guy that doesn't load the dishwasher correctly. So I have my feet on the ground and understand what's really happening. But thanks for that introduction. I'm going to take you through some visual imagery of Yonge Street from past to present and into the future. So again, I love to show that Yonge Street has always been the place for convening, right? It is Canada's iconic main street. We've all had a rite of passage. This might look like VE Day to you, but it is definitely the last time the Maple Leafs won the Stanley Cup. This is probably a more current, and we've got to think back to Yonge Street back in the day. It was the iconic place that everybody came to Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights. It's where all the live theaters, all the theaters, obviously the theaters, the music venues, but also a significant retail content was in here. People just drove Yonge Street Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights. You cruised up and down. Before all the other malls were like the Golden Mile and everything opened, Yonge Street was the iconic spot. Some of you may remember when Yonge Street was the pedestrian mall. And that was a great moment in its history when everybody came out. This is when we had all the live venues on Yonge Street, and it was a great spot to be. It was a very successful time for Yonge Street. And again, it was a place for people to convene. So Yonge Street today with the investments, I mean, we haven't stopped with the investments on Yonge Street. We needed to make some changes. I refer to it as the fall and rise of Yonge Street. Obviously, Yonge Street back in the day was a vibrant city location and a place for all Torontonians, but it started to decline. And we made significant investments with the implementation of Yonge Dundas Square. And you can see that it brings that vitality and a place for convening, and everybody comes to for music, performance, dance, and multiple things. Some people forget that it is a neighborhood, and sometimes we put out, RBIA puts out a lot of infographics. People forget we were one of the first original neighborhoods in Toronto prior to the Great Fire. And with the Great Fire, that's when all of a sudden people, the downtown core dispersed. And that was the creation of Greek Town, Chinatown, Little Portugal, Little Italy. Those neighborhoods were created from that time. But we have 180,000 people that live within a 10-minute walk of Yonge and Dundas. And our employment cluster, our daily employment cluster grows to over 550,000 people. That is the entire population of Oslo, Norway, commuting here daily. One of the things that we're seeing is Yonge Street's becoming very, very tall. Those vacant parking lots that we used to have on Yonge Street are gone. 8,000 new units are currently on construction on Yonge Street alone. This does not include, you know, Bay Street, Church Street, or other streets, side streets. This is 8,000 units on Yonge Street, which will bring over 14,000 more people to live on Yonge Street within the next 5 years. 2020 for us started very well. We had just finished a major investment of $8.2 million into College Park. That was a partnership between Canderel, the property owners, our City of Toronto, and the Downtown Yonge BIA. We started to activate it, and it was starting to look like a wonderful year in 2020 as the community was coming out and using this new space. This is the first low CO2 carbon emission skating rink in the world is in this park. And if you haven't seen it, please make time for it. But we started 2020 very well, and then this happened. Then Yonge Street became vacant. There was public service announcements about COVID. You could see a lot of the press and coverage around TTC declines, TTC usage dropped, businesses started to close. There was a lot of bad news coming our way. We started boarding up the street. The social inequity started to appear. To see that, you know, businesses were closing and boarding up based on numerous issues was very disturbing. And we started to look a little bit like urban blight was setting in. The fact that the Toronto Eaton Centre, one of the most iconic destinations for retail globally, had shut down and boarded up was pretty scary at a time when we started to initially launch or get into the COVID issue in March and April. We've lost business. And just to show you a sample of the names, and these are not small independent, we've lost a lot of small independent, but when you see those names there, the fact that we've lost Pickle Barrel that's been downtown for well over 30 years, that we're losing Tim Hortons, Starbucks, Swiss Chalets, it's very concerning. And obviously the downtown core is evolving very quickly and increasing vacancy rates. This shows our pedestrian counts. We're one of the only BIAs that has monitors on street that monitor all the pedestrian traffic, vehicle traffic, as well as cycling traffic. Normally on Yonge Street, we get 42 million people that walk north and south on Yonge Street on an annual basis. 55 million enter the Eaton Centre every year. When COVID hit, we dropped 85% of the volume of foot traffic in 1 month. And our year over numbers were down over 45% year over year in the foot traffic on Yonge Street. The other thing that's very concerning, and this is data in regards to the employment cluster, we forget the economics that the cluster brings. And people forget that even though we have the Eaton Centre, there's 3 employment towers in the Eaton Centre that connect to that space. The employment cluster in Toronto usually runs at around 80% occupancy because there's people that are out on business travel, there's people that are on vacation, or they're working from home. Our employment cluster dropped to as low as 4%. So the economics of the neighborhood have left. And we're currently monitoring, as you see, we're currently running at 4%. There is a big push to get the employment cluster back because of the economic impact that it has. As you know, Mayor Tory has, we're still in a work from home model, but we are working with Mayor Tory to try and bring the employment cluster back because the neighborhood cannot survive alone with just the people that live in the neighborhood. So what happened is we did an entire study as part of the BIA, but the core BIAs did this study to our city and to the federal government, the impact. Our GDP was sliced in half. Our contribution to the Canadian economy dropped from 19% down to 11%. There's approximately 120, I think the new number that I quote is around 130,000 jobs will be lost in our neighborhood in the downtown core, based on, you know, the hospitality sector, all the people that work and deliver your coffee for you in the morning, the people that clean the hotel rooms, all those jobs are going to be lost. So tourism is gone as well because we can't convene, we can't bring people back in. And the municipal revenues have dropped significantly. Just the TTC contribution to the City of Toronto, $600 million has been lost. So when you think of land transfer, all the other funding opportunities that the city has to rely on to keep us functioning has been gone because of COVID. But there's hope. There's hope. There is a future. We did a project, we had learned very early on, a few years back, that the water pipe under Yonge Street, which is 1875 circa and still functioning today, has to be replaced. So we initiated something called Young Love. And that was a consultation as to what do we want to do with Yonge Street. If you're going to dig it up, the last time Yonge Street was open was in the 1940s when we put the subway system in. So we had to learn, how do people come to our neighborhood? And 49% of everybody that comes to our neighborhood uses public transit, heavy rail. There's 40% that walk. Obviously, the percentage between driving and cycling has evolved and changed, but we really needed to find out how people access our neighborhood. What people told us, they want Yonge Street to be walkable. They want a great experience. They need it clean. The experiential is so important in this day and age. The sidewalks on Yonge Street have not changed since I was a kid and was, walking Yonge Street. So based on that 42 million people, we probably should have changed the sidewalk, size, capacity, probably 20 million people ago. And obviously people want to be in the downtown core, want to make sure it's safe, sustainable, and the diversity is there. What this consultation led to is the formal, what they refer to as an EA study, the environmental assessment, which is a provincial process that has to be implemented by the City of Toronto to determine, we're going to change the street. And what does that look like? So we've been doing this EA study for over 2 years now. And we finally have the approvals from City Council and committee on the redesign of Yonge Street. So there is an image of Yonge Street of the future. Yonge Street is currently 4 lanes. It will be reduced from 4 lanes down to 2 lanes, 1 lane south, 1 lane north. The pedestrian experience will increase. There'll be wider sidewalks, there'll be benches, places for patios. We'll support the overall economics and the engagement of community in this new public realm. There'll be tree plantings, it'll be greened up. There'll be a lot of initiatives to focus on programming on the street. Originally, there was a suggestion of having Yonge Street as pedestrianized. That will not be happening. It has not been approved by City Council, but it will be narrowed. So this is what's been approved. You see, various, technical drawings of Yonge Street. You'll see where tree planting will be going. You'll see where the streets will be narrowed, where lay-bys will be for taxi and pickup locations. We'll be changing a lot of the overall hardware and design, where the concrete is, what types of pavers and finished materials. It will become a flexible street so that you can close it for programmings. It's still going to be that street for Torontonians, Canadians, and even visitors come to see great activations. Festivals and events will be on that street. And we're currently in an operational plan that will determine when Yonge Street closes, why it closes, to make sure that all the preeminent events in Toronto come to Yonge Street. So we're looking for the Nuit Blanches, the North by Northeast festivals, Luminato. We've hosted the opening of the NHL hockey season on Yonge Street. Those will be the things that will be on Yonge Street. It will be the preeminent festival destination going forward. So here's where we are. There's still a lot of work that's been done based on the work the BIA started back in 2013 and all the reports we did that fed into the CA process. Now the City of Toronto has completed the construction design of the narrowing of Yonge Street, but we need to figure out where do the trees go, where do the planters go, where do the park benches and the garbage cans, all those operational best practices. It's a challenge. It's a big project ahead of us because literally below the sidewalk, within 18 inches below that sidewalk, there's infrastructure. There's gas lines, there's water pipes, there's all sorts of things that are there. So it's going to be a very important and critical phase. So we're currently in this report back to the city, and it will be going hopefully and exceed approval with city council and then go into construction in, as you can see, in late 2023, hoping to have it done by 2025 or 2026. And that is my presentation. I thank you again for this opportunity and welcome any questions that you may have. Over to you, President John.
Well, thank you very much, Mark. Well, we're waiting to see if any questions come through. I guess I'm going to state the obvious. It doesn't matter how old or how young you are. I think everyone who grew up in Toronto or Toronto adjacent, I know growing up in Georgetown, Saturday nights, we'd have 3-4 carloads driving up and down and up again and down again, Yonge Street. It's just a most iconic street. I know even today, when I'm at an event downtown, no matter what the weather is, I will walk from, say, the National Club all the way up to Bloor Street before I catch a cab. It just love, and I think everyone loves Yonge Street.
No, and I think that's, you bring up a good point, John. I think that is it. It's been a rite of passage. As a Scarborough boy, you came down Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, and you walked Yonge Street back and forth, and you experienced, you went into the pinball shops, you went into the record stores, and you went into the venues and listened to great music. And then when you weren't walking it and you became of age, then you got the car and you drove it every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights. Yeah.
I do have one question for you. It's not Yonge Street specific. The business improvement areas, I know there's many across the city, and I would venture to guess that a lot of people don't really know what they do. I have some friends that are involved with a few of them, so I do know that they are really influential in all parts of Toronto. Do you want to just give a quick idea of what they are and what they do?
No, it's a good question, John. There's, the entire business improvement movement started in Toronto and it went global. There's thousands of BIAs or BIDs, business improvement districts globally. The very first BIA started at Bloor West Village, and the businesses lobbied the provincial government to basically say, we want you to tax us more. And through those tax dollars, then those monies came back to take care of municipal lands. So in the municipal code that was written over 50 years ago, there's something called Chapter 19, which is the dividing document for BIAs and what we answer to. There is over 83 BIAs in Toronto alone now. There's over 550 BIAs across Canada and over 1,000 in the United States. So no matter what community you go to when you travel, whether you're in Italy, the UK, doesn't matter, there's probably a business improvement area that is taking care of the downtown core. And really we're mandated to beautify. We clean, maintain municipal owned lands, but we also help work with the development applications and what we need in the neighborhood. We do retail attraction. We do a bunch of different things. What is changing for BIAs and the work that our BIA is doing is we don't see it just as business improvement anymore. I start to call it a CIA because based on the residential growth, we're looking at community improvements. People have chosen to live in this neighborhood because they want to be in that arts and culture cluster. We have legacy theaters, as you know, with Mirvish, Massey Hall, Winter Garden, Elgin. So that's what we do. There's 83 in this city and they continue to grow. There's more BIAs being added to Toronto every year.
I think they're absolutely brilliant. And I guess as they open to the public, if you have a question, if you live in an area, to call your business improvement area?
Yeah, we always accept those calls, John, to be honest with you. But there is an organization, the BIA office. There is in economic development for the city of Toronto. There's a BIA office. If anybody's interested in learning, you can go to the BIA office website at the city of Toronto, and it'll show you whether the neighborhood you live in has a BIA. And then we also work with an organization called TABIA, which is the Toronto Area Business Improvement Association. And that is the organization that does a lot of the advocacy work for BIAs across Toronto.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm going to put two questions together. One of them is, with this new planning, what sort of considerations being put in for facilities such as public washrooms? And for the second question, sort of the same, is what's being done to ensure or help safety, in like, shootings and stuff like that?
Yeah, those are two very common themes that come up in all the work that we've done. There is public washrooms at Yonge Dundas Square, but again, based on the social inequity that you see on street today, based on COVID, there is a need for more public washroom space. Obviously, there's washrooms within the Toronto Eaton Centre and with the hotels that we have in the area, but there is no real public washroom process or protocol policy for the city of Toronto, which is being revisited as part of this redesign. Safety came through as a very clear in any of the consultation in regards to being on Yonge Street. As you know, a lot of people have a significant fear of Yonge Street based on perception of safety issues. Somebody with mental health issues or showing elevated behavior is of concern. We've been advocating very strongly during COVID. A lot of hotels in Toronto have been used to solve the homelessness issue, but we also have been working with Mayor Tory. It didn't come through in the budget, which was a bit of a regret for us from the Premier's office, but we have looked at supportive housing. We've asked for $48 million for the city of Toronto to put in supportive housing across the city. Right now, there's a lot of concentration of services in the downtown core, and we believe in a distributed model. If every neighborhood in Toronto just took 50 clients, then the entire services would be distributed across the city. And that is our belief, and we'll continue to advocate for that. But I think, we've set up a program called Community Engagement Team. We have direct outreach to help those clients on street that may have escalated behavior or having troubles during their day. And we deal with them directly and try and find them the supportive services that they need.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, when we move forward, we have to remember we can't take everyone with us, not just those who can afford to go. I appreciate
No,
that.
that's correct, John. We can't leave anybody behind because the norm, everybody talks about, oh, I can't wait till we get back to the norm. And the answer is the norm wasn't working then. So when we come out of COVID, we need a different city. We need to make sure we haven't left anybody behind, and we have to address the homelessness issue. We have to address affordable housing, and we have to make sure we have the mental health supports that everybody needs.
Excellent. I'm glad that's being considered because it's integral. One question here, what's the estimated cost of this project and what do you anticipate the return on investment to be?
Now, there's an economist at heart. Did that come from you, Mark? That might have been a good question coming from you. So,
No.
No, we're at a 30% design for Yonge Street, and it is currently at $70 million. There is some capital forecast that's being put together by the Transportation Department, and I expect that when we're done the final design, it will be closer to $100 million to improve this street. But this is the type of investment that we need to make in Toronto. We are in a global competitive situation. We didn't have 48 months ago, we never had Saks and Nordstrom's and Muji's and Uniqlo on Yonge Street. And the big announcement that came this week was IKEA is coming downtown with their new urban model. So they have bought the entire podium level from Kingset Capital Investments at the corner of Yonge and Gerrard that used to be a parking lot next to GWL. So they bought the entire podium level, which will be 3 floors, all street facing, as well as 2 levels of podium that will be the new IKEA destination for the city of Toronto. So a lot of good things are happening. And then I see, based on those investments and those types of, retailers that want to be in the area, the 70 million or the 100 million that we're about to invest will make that money back multiple times. And that's why Yonge Street has to remain a festival street. As an example, when we brought Busker Fest in support of Epilepsy Toronto and the work that they do, we brought 1.4 million people onto Yonge Street over 4 days, and we generated over $52 million of direct indirect, not only in our neighborhood, but in the city of Toronto. So those are the things. That's why we're making these investments. We need to recover from where Yonge Street used to be, and we have a very bright future. And all the work we're doing, as I say, it's not for my generation. It's not for the generation that I'm speaking to today. It's for the generations that follow. The work we're doing has to carry on for 50, 75, or another 100 years.
Will there still be room for things like the Pride Parade, where you get 1 or 2 million people at an event?
John, that's the intent. Those are the festivals, the key preeminent festivals that need to be on Yonge Street. When we had World Pride here, RBI actually pushed, because it normally would not come down Yonge Street. It would turn at College Street and go back towards the village. We actually activated and brought it all the way down to Yonge and Dundas and did significant programming on Yonge Dundas Square. Those are the things that need to happen for Toronto, and those are the types of festivals we see in the future.
Excellent. That was 2 million people.
Yeah.
With, a lot of people working from home now, the reality is the potential that less people will be in the offices. I know there's a great debate on that. Some people think that they'll never come back, and I think a lot of people want to come back. So it's a debate. If there's a less people working downtown, have you factored that in?
Yeah, and I think we're all looking in that crystal ball. If I look at, we look at best practices globally, and if I look at what's happened to Calgary as a perfect example, not only did the loss in the oil industry, but then COVID hit, the vacancy within Calgary, they're now looking at converting office towers into residential. They've got to find a way to bring people back into the core. With our employment cluster, normally running at around 80%, I anticipate, based on the research we've done, we'll probably get back to around 60%. So there's still a 20% gap that we've got to figure out. As an example, I'm lucky enough to have Ryerson University on our street. Ryerson students alone generate over $32 million for this neighborhood. So I need that university back, but also they're all doing their lessons online right now because they can, and it's a safe way. So even the university sector has pivoted. So we expect that 60% will be the return. People, to your point, John, want to get back in the office. There's a certain age demographic that's just itching to get back, and they need to be social. They need to be on the patios. They need to be having lunch with their friends and dinner. So we expect to see a very quick recovery when we open back up and get COVID behind us, because I think we'll be that destination again. People want to travel. In any of the conversations I have, people are looking to go on their vacations again, and people want to come to Toronto for our music scene, for our theaters. I think we'll recover that way. So the employment cluster will get the 60%, but our destination will pick up that gap.
Next, I think one last question. Someone asked about will they be factoring issues like anti-Asian racism, but I would say broaden that to everything, including Black Lives Matter, homophobia, people being abusive of homeless people. Is there some plan in there to help on those projects?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's another issue or opportunity that has revealed itself in the last couple of weeks around specifically the Asian culture and some of the things that we're seeing in the community, not only just in Toronto, but it's a global issue. We're dealing with those issues now, and I think that's what we need to do. We have a strategy in place that we developed back in 2015 called Safe and Inclusive. And we see that we need to make this neighborhood safe and inclusive for all, no matter what your ethnicity, no matter what your income level is. And we've implemented programs to support that. So our organization, and we won awards for the work that we're doing, and it's being replicated. We actually do Indigenous First Nations outreach with actually uniformed police officers in our neighborhood, with Cree elders. And that has been very successful. So we put that through our social lens, everything that we do. And I know Rotary is very supportive of the Sherburne bus. We work with those organizations and the organizations that you've worked with to make sure that we're making the community as safe as possible for the most vulnerable people that are on street, and make sure that Yonge Street is the place to go and the place to be.
Excellent. Well, Mark, I want to thank you so much. I was looking forward to this one. You do seem to cover a lot of issues that we are very, very concerned with. Who knows, maybe something between the two organizations, maybe you or someone from your committee would like to even join Rotary. We do have quite a synergy here that could be happening. I would like to thank you. A donation has been made in your honor to Fife House. Fife House is a large provider of supportive housing and support services to people living with HIV/AIDS in the Greater Toronto Area. This past year, Fife House served more than 750 individuals and families. Additionally, 300 individuals were housed. This donation helps provide hope, help, and a home to the most vulnerable and marginalized members of our community. This donation is made in partnership with the Rotary Club of Toronto's philanthropic fund. Thank you so much.
I appreciate that, John. Thank you very much. And just to let you know, our organization will be making a donation to your cause as well. So it's reciprocal, and I totally believe that there is an opportunity to work closely with the Rotary as we talk about very common issues about wellness of community. So I look forward to potentially having those conversations with Rotary in the future. But we're making a donation on behalf of our BIA to the work that you guys do. So thank you
so much. Thank you. We appreciate that, and we look forward to working together with the downtown business area, because you're our backyard. You're where we service. Join us again virtually on April the 9th. As you know, there's no meeting next week, Friday, but there will be the birthday party for someone on Wednesday, the 31st. There'll be a Wednesday evening Rotary meeting or President's cocktail party. I was hoping if anyone wanted to, there'd be an opportune time to make a donation to the Rotary Club of Toronto Charitable Foundation to help us celebrate. Join us again virtually on Friday, April the 9th. Our guest speaker will be Dr. Carolyn Snyder, Chief of Emergency Medicine at St. Michael's Hospital, and her topic will be how St. Michael's managed through COVID and used the Rotary Club of Toronto Transition Center. Please feel free to invite guests and share links to connect. However, have them connect with the office in order to be admitted to the meeting. Well, we had quite a great week this week. The weather, spring, one thing about living in a climate like we do, every new season, just whether it be the new fall colors, the new snow in December, or in spring when that first day of 20-something and we just get excited. You add to that what's happening with reducing patios opening. There was an energy that just Toronto is fabulous when the early spring, when everyone's out and you can just feel the energy in the air. I hope people will enjoy that, but still remain cautious and follow protocols that are recommended. We're getting so much closer, and I hope everyone's getting the vaccine soon. But enjoy the weekend. It's gonna be a little wetter this weekend, but it's spring. I hope everyone enjoys it. Thank you for attending today's meeting. The meeting is adjourned.